Well, we're trying something brand new. We have some weird camera here that we've never used before, so I hope this works. Christina is monitoring it eagerly and claims it works. I feel kind of strange. I'm not used to new technology. Anyway, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the debates. I did a lot of debates in 2011, 2012, and of course, I'm old enough I saw the first debates between Kennedy and Nixon back in 1960, and I've watched debate prep and the presidential debates ever since. And like most of you, I am really intrigued with what Monday night's going to be like. This is like the Super Bowl of politics. I mean, here you have a established, many year professional in Hillary Clinton who was campaigning for George McGovern in Texas way back in 1972, campaigned for Joe Lieberman in the state senate race back in Connecticut, campaigned with her husband for governor of Arkansas starting in 78, or before that for attorney general, before that in 76 or 74 rather, for Congress. Became a U.S. senator in her own right, and then became a presidential candidate. Came in close second to Obama, and then was Secretary of State for 4 years. So here you have a person who has this huge database in her brain of things she's actually done. She's been in India, she's negotiated this, she's done that, she's, you name it, she's been there. On the other hand, she tends to be a policy wonk. She probably studies too much. She knows too many facts. And she's a little bit cautious and structured in how she approaches these things. If you watched her either debating in 2007 and 8, or if you watched her debating Bernie Sanders. On the other hand, you have somebody who has never been in public office, who began running last summer, who defeated 16 Republican candidates, won every single debate he was in. We're messing around with the camera because we're not quite happy yet. Will they say what?
They can't hear.
They can't hear.
So maybe talk louder.
Well, I'll try to talk louder, but this is supposed to pick you up 5 feet away. We're just reporting on checking out these new technologies. So please keep sending us. If you're not hearing me correctly or for some other problem, write in as soon as you can. So, Trump is different. So here's sort of in my newsletter today, which you can get for free at gingrichproductions.com, is on debate preparation. So you're going to have, in Lester Holt, professional newsman, anchor for a major national, in fact, for the highest rated evening news broadcast on broadcast television. I think he's not going to be trying to rig the game. Just because of his personality, I think he will probably be fairly straight. And I don't think he'll think it's his job to be a fact checker. I think he'll basically, if one of them says something that the other one thinks is wrong, he's just going to say, your turn. What do you think? What's your answer? I hope that's how he plays it. I think it's totally wrong when these moderators try to get involved themselves as though they were the equivalent of a presidential candidate, which they're not. They're news people. They're reporters. They're not about to be commander-in-chief and president of the United States. Trump is totally different from Clinton, and that's what will make this absolutely fascinating. In football terms, it's like watching a great defensive team and a great offensive team that are totally different personalities and trying to figure out what's going to happen during the game. Donald Trump is, I think, the best debater I've ever seen. Not in terms of how debate coaches score, not in terms of how the news media scores, but if you look at Google and Twitter and Facebook, you look at public opinion polling, he won every debate with 16 Republican candidates. He won against the news media. When the news media picked a fight with him, he won. When candidates picked a fight with him, he won. And I think there are some profound reasons. First of all, Trump is much smarter than people think. And he has a native ability, it's instinctive to him, to flow with the debate. In fact, I think the greatest threat he has is to be overcoached. I mean, if he ends up sitting there trying to remember what somebody told him about how he ought to answer, he'll lose his greatest strength, which is speed. Hillary, on the other hand, doesn't have speed. What Hillary has is very methodical preparation. She and her consultants will have thought through every possible angle of this debate. If Trump says A, she'll say B. If Trump says C, she'll say D. She'll have a series of gimmicks to try to get under his skin. She'll have a series of gimmicks to try to make him respond, to get him angry, to get him off balance. Trump, on the other hand, has to just calmly relax, treat her with great respect, describe her consistently as Secretary Clinton, showing that he respects her office, he respects her career, and then basically just laugh at her. I mean, if she wants to try to make him angry, be happy. It makes her look childish. If she thinks she has some clever gimmick, learn how to back up and get out of the way and let the whole country watch the gimmick. Because the American people aren't stupid. The American people, this is going to be the highest rated debate in history. And people are going to tune in like for an athletic event. And they're going to sit there and they're going to be memorized and they're going to keep score and they're going to be very curious what's going on. Now, Elizabeth Espinosa says, how do you think Trump will react if Hillary touches on a sore point or provokes him? Do you think he can stay composed? My bet is he will stay composed. On the other hand, and he said this on Fox and Friends yesterday morning, he intends to start by treating her with great respect, and he hopes that she will treat him with respect. Now, under that is the hidden threat that if she wants a barroom brawl, she's got a guy who's very happy in barroom brawls. I mean, you look at his reaction to Jeb Bush or his reaction to Marco Rubio or his reaction to Ted Cruz. When somebody punches him, he punches back really hard. And so I think he'll be in both places. He'll say on the one hand, hey, I'm happy to be pleasant because I'm going to beat you if I'm pleasant. Or if you want to get into a real fight, I'm happy to get in a real fight because I'll beat you in a real fight. And I think attitudinally, it'll be interesting to watch. She's going to walk in very determined, very professional, a little bit uptight. She lost, after all, in 07 and 08 when she should have won, and she was the front runner. So she has to have a little concern. She's watched the polls tighten. Trump's actually starting to pull ahead of her. So she's going to be the one who has the pressure. Trump's going to wander in as this guy who's in the middle of a great run. I mean, he never ran for office before. From his perspective, this is fun, and he is enjoying it. I think he's having the time of his life. I mean, I was with him on Monday on his airplane, and we went down, and I wrote about this in a newsletter I did earlier that you can get at Gingrich Productions on which I called the Trump airplane. And, you imagine, he's got his own plane with his own staff. They actually got hamburgers from McDonald's on this particular trip. And I have to report here, Trump, for all of his wealth, eats regular, everyday fast food. He loves Wendy's. He loves McDonald's. They're consistent. This particular trip was a McDonald's trip. What can I tell you? I had the artisan grilled chicken. But he's having a great time, and he flies into Tampa, or into Fort Myer, and we go to an auditorium, and there are 10,000 people screaming and cheering. Why wouldn't you have a good time? So he's having a ball. He is saying things he thinks are important. He's talking about issues that matter. I just chatted with him briefly today about stop and frisk, which I think is very important. Rudy Giuliani as mayor of New York and Chief Bratton as the police chief in New York reduced the murder rate by 85%. They saved thousands of lives over the years, and they did it by being very aggressive and teaching their police how to look for people who are dangerous. Richmond, Virginia had a very similar program where if they found a felon with a gun, they automatically locked him up. They reduced the murder rate the first year by 1/3. Now we've got Chicago with 3,000 people shot already this year, about one every 2 hours. We have riots in Ferguson and in Baltimore and in Milwaukee and in Charlotte, and Trump's got the guts to stand up and say, hey, what if we did something we know actually works? So he's having an impact on the national debate. He sees a chance to become president of the United States and try to do things that are historic. He's got the roar of the crowd. I mean, you get 10,000 people applauding for you, you feel good. So he's having a great time. By the way, the same day he had 10,000 people in Fort Myer, Hillary had 300 in Philadelphia. Interesting, different strategies for the two campaigns. John Kane says, will it be the highest rated debate ever, and if so, is it because of an energized GOP? It will, in my judgment, be the highest debate ever, not just because of the GOP. Remember, Trump, for 13 years, did The Apprentice. He knows how to keep an audience entertained. This is, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, this is just too much of a circus not to watch. I mean, I don't have a cat. I'm trying to learn how my new toys work. Anyway, there was another one you started to give me a minute ago and I lost.
It'll come back.
It'll come back, okay. So, John Mayer says, why isn't Hillary being held accountable for her remarks prior to the riots in North Carolina by the media? Could you imagine if Trump had made those comments? Do you mean the comments about 2 more people killed by the police, that comment? Well, she should be held accountable because the truth is, when she was in law school, she was the associate editor of a radical newspaper which called Police Pigs. When she got out of law school, she went to a West Coast law firm that was specializing in helping the Black Panthers, who were in a series of continuing running fights with the police. She has consistently been anti-police, and her comments the other day were terrible. She said, well, 2 more people on the list of people killed by the police. But what does that mean? The majority of people, vast majority, overwhelming majority of people killed by policemen are killed by the policemen because they're armed and dangerous and doing something bad. And I don't want to live in a city where the police are so intimidated that they won't go out and stop crime. That's happened in Baltimore, and crime went up dramatically. It's happened in Chicago, and as I said a while ago, we've had 3,000 shootings this year. That's because the police aren't being aggressive. But if you're aggressive, all of a sudden liberals jump up and say, oh my gosh, look at the police, they're being aggressive. Liberals would rather have the police be passive and folks die than have the police be aggressive and save lives. I mean, this is just a fact. And I think it's a debate we need as a country. Kathy Tank, do I think Hillary will melt down? Probably not. The fact is that she's a professional. She's been around a long time. She will have practiced this. I'll bet they will have done 5 or 10 hours of mock debates where they'll have various people play Trump and she'll be up against him and they'll tape it and then they'll look at the tape, then they'll do it again and then they'll look at the tape. So she will really have been through, and they'll try to exhaust her and they'll try to surprise her and they'll try to make her angry because she is a professional. So this is like a team that is going through spring training. I mean, she's going to try to be totally prepared. So I don't think she'll melt down. Either she or Trump may make a mistake, and that'll be interesting to watch. They also may not make any mistakes, in which case she may get a very clear choice between a conservative and a liberal. That's why I think it's going to be so fascinating, and I think everybody ought to watch it. Now, Rachel McKenna, can you explain stop and frisk to us? Is he planning on doing this everywhere or just in inner cities? Stop and frisk was a component of a process called CompStat, which Chief Bratton brought to New York. When Giuliani became mayor of New York, he realized that the city was in desperate trouble. And he interviewed a series of people about becoming police chief. And every single time he said, can you, if I hire you, can you bring down the crime rate? Every single one of them gave him the standard establishment sociology answer, which is, well, there are a lot of factors and I can't really promise, until he got to Bratton, who was police chief in Boston, earlier had been the police chief in the New York subway. And Bratton's book, Turnaround, is absolutely worth your reading if you're curious about how to make a city safe and how to save lives. And Bratton said, I think I can reduce it 10% the first year. The only person to say he could reduce it. Actually reduced it 14%. Now, how'd they do that? They didn't focus on solving crimes. They focused on preventing crimes. So they would take a high crime neighborhood, they'd flood it with police. If you were a suspicious person, let's say there's a neighborhood where people have been robbing 7-Elevens and they've been robbing liquor stores. If you looked suspicious, they'd go over and talk to you. They would check you out. The result was they made it very difficult and very expensive to be a criminal. And crime plummeted. Literally 85% drop. Staten Island, which has 600,000 people, is the safest place of 600,000 people in the entire United States. Very, very little crime. But it does mean you have a police force which is actively looking for criminals and which is actively looking for people who have guns. Now, let me draw a distinction. If you have going down and getting a license, we're talking about folks who are, generally speaking, outside the law, who are carrying a gun illegally, who may already have a felony conviction, and who may be dealing in drugs or doing other things. So the question is, we know, we've done it, we know how to bring down the murder rate in Chicago dramatically. But a lot of liberals will complain because it means a stronger, more aggressive police force. Aaron Martin, do you think it is likely that Trump can win New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, or Virginia? And this is my last question for today, and let me just say, the question is it likely? I certainly think he has a chance at all three. Ironically, Virginia may be the hardest because the immediate government employee area in Northern Virginia is certainly shaken by the idea of Trump for the very reason people in the rest of the country like him. He's going to come here and shake up the city. When they're all kind of gone, okay, let me get this straight. I got a nice job, I got a good house, my property values are pretty good, and you're going to come in and shake everything up. Gosh, what if I'm one of the people who get shaken up? So he's going to have a hard time in Northern Virginia. On the other hand, Virginia is still a state that has a huge block of conservative voters. And even in Northern Virginia, there are a lot of people who know that we need to be shaken up if we're going to be an effective country anymore. Pennsylvania, I think he is doing remarkably well in. He is beginning to do well in New Hampshire. The truth is that the more Trump campaigns, the more people see him, the more he offsets Hillary's advertising, and he offsets the elite media's total bias, the stronger he gets. And I think we're seeing that continue to spread. And if he can, I'll just close with this thought. If he can win the debate Monday, be calm, pleasant, respectful to Hillary, accept that he's going to make an occasional mistake and not worry about it. Just keep being who he is, keep being the guy who won every single debate in the all 12 of the Republican debates. I think he'll do very well, and I think I'll be on Fox Monday night talking about it. If I get the time, I might even do a little Facebook Live Monday night reporting on the debates, and it's going to be very exciting, and I hope you are going to watch it Monday night. So thank you very, very much.